smart twin said rightly, fill the brain with high thoughts, highest ideals, place them day and night before you, and out of that will come great work. May I call upon the distinguished guest and a great hard worker, Mr. Kandaswamy Umapathy, Senior Director, HCM Cloud Operation, Oracle USA Inc., CA USA, to deliver the inaugural address. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, your voice is audible, sir.
Yes, sir. Voice is audible, sir. Welcome,
Okay,
sir.
Yes, sir.
okay. So good evening, everyone. Thanks for the invitation. Thank you, Principal and Dr. Jayakumar, for inviting me for this important course that you're launching. And first of all, I would like to congratulate all the course participants for enrolling in this transformational course. This course is very, very important, and this initiative looks very good. It's needed for this particular juncture in pandemic. And also, I would like to thank everyone for staying this long. I know you all had a long day, so thank you for staying back
Okay, sir.
and listening to us. And I will not take much time. I know most of you are teachers and educators, and I'm not an educator. I'm a technology guy. If I say something um, not relevant on teaching, and you can correct me, and I will make a note of that. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so there has been a race between technology and education all along. So if you look at the 14th century, we had this printing technology that was invented, meaning commercially they were able to print. But at that time, only 4% of the world population could read. So the technology went way ahead, and people were not able to read the printed books. So that trend continues for a long time right after the Industrial Revolution. And the same thing is happening now after several centuries. Digitization, right? So has gone ahead, and the people are not able to access that information using the digital technology. So after a period of time, the technology kind of had become stable, and then we were able to make people read, write, and all that stuff. So the education went little ahead, and then technology was lagging behind. So after a period of time, again, technology went up, and the education is lagging behind. That is the state we are at right now. So whenever technology is lagging behind the education, there is a prosperity in the world. Whenever the technology is ahead of education, we have social pain. So tech races ahead and education falls behind. Digitization is the most important thing that every one of us should be focusing on right now. 30% of the jobs will vanish in next 5 years. Some of the jobs which falls under this 30% is also classic in-class teaching. Next slide, please. So the classroom teaching hasn't changed a lot since 15th century. If you look at the picture on the right side, you will see a person professing, and there are people sitting. There is even one person in the last row sleeping. There are two people at the back chatting to each other. After several centuries, after several centuries, we still have the same classroom method. On the left-hand side, you have a picture from a Ivy League school, Ivy League school classroom. Look at the number of people who are attending. And we still have the same setup. We haven't changed the methodologies very much. So we still have one size fits all. The class is customized for the entire audience, not for the individuals. But there is a monologue that goes on from the person who is professing to all the learners out there. And the accessibility of the person who is transmitting information is not that easy in this traditional classic model. Next slide, please.
So can we go to the next slide, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So if you look at the old world, the content, the educational material is very rare, and the career path is very stable. You go to college, get a degree, get a job, then you retire. But in the new world, we have great content everywhere. And flexibility and lifelong learning is the key in this new world. That means once you graduate from the college and get a job, that won't be sufficient. You need to be getting educated continuously. You learn every 5 years, technology changes, right? So you again learn and then go back to the workforce. So that process continues several cycles before the person retires. This may be because the people are forced to do this. The technology is obsolete, or people have that flexibility of learning a different skill and taking up a different job. So we are in a new world. So the learning here is continuous. It is not only for the students, it is also for the teachers. The learning process is continuous. Next slide, please. Okay, here is an interesting slide. You may be surprised looking at the data given here. So it may not be that much accurate, but it gives a ballpark number. So if you look at the bottom, the 90% of the students retain their knowledge or whatever they learned by teaching to others. If you look at the next level, 75% of the people had to practice it in order to remember. If they don't practice it, they'll eventually forget. 50% can retain if they involve in group discussions or discussions with their friends and colleagues. 30% gets retained if they look at the demonstrations or laboratory work. 20% audiovisual, 10% by reading the books. The interesting one at the top is the lecture. So less than 10% of the information that we transmit to the students stays. That is the retention rate that we have. So our traditional models of pure lecture or professing a monologue is no longer going to work. So we need to reinvent teaching for 21st century. Now, a 12-month-old child can operate a smart device. They can unlock a phone, they can play games which are very interactive. So this is just 12 months old. So we are in a new world where these students are citizens of digital world. So the monologue nature of teaching is no longer going to work because their attention span is anywhere between 6 to 8 minutes, and any session that we run beyond 20 minutes is not going to stay with that. So we need to be doing a lot of multimedia, videos, animations, and also a lot of information can be learned on the go. So instead of accumulating the information, they should be learning where to find the information. For example, if you're doing a Google search, a lot of people are now running courses on how to search on Google. So that's the information that they need, not the actual what type of information. Next slide, ma'am. Okay, so I want to give 3 takeaways, right? The first one actually is the main topic that we are discussing, digitization. So, but we are not going to go pure digitize at this point in time. So we are going to have a hybrid model where we are going to blend the online and offline learning methods. So we're going to be promoting thick online. What does that mean? We want to pass on all the traditional things as much as possible to online. The offline should be for more collaboration and R&D type of education. The next one is personalization. So we'll talk about that in the next slide. And the third one is socialize the education. So these are the 3 takeaways: hybridize, personalize, and socialize. Next slide, please. So the first topic first takeaway that I wanted everyone to take with them is digitize. I don't think anyone in this forum, most of you are teachers, will disagree the need for digitization. But we are also going to hybridize with the classic teaching methods. So a blend of online and offline learning. Most of the work happens online. We want to push as much as possible to online. The collaborative work, the research work, or a discussion type of work should be facilitated in the campus. So this model will be very, very cost effective and it will be universally accessible. Next slide, please. Personalize. So you looked at the previous slides where the monologue happened. A professor is professing to the, all the people, like the one size fit all. Unfortunately, one size doesn't fit all. Even in our shirts, we have small, medium, large, extra large, and things like that. So each student has a different skill level. So, and there are accessibility issues. There are students who have learning disabilities. So the materials should be customized. It,
So,
the students on a self-paced manner. So some students can run 2-3 modules in a week, whereas the people with learning difficulties can use the same material in a different format and take it at a slower pace. And to categorize the learners, we should engage psychologists who can approximately classify these students with different skill levels and abilities. Next slide, ma'am. Socialize. So socialize is the a very, very important aspect of this transformation. So we have a lot of social media networks out there, and students and teachers can form groups, right? There are online discussion forums. So this is outside of the university. So there are specific forums for a specific topic. For example, somebody wants to learn about artificial intelligence. There are forums for those. So most of the questions are already answered. If you go in there and post your question, there will be a lot of answers which are already answered, and you will automatically get them based on the AI techniques that are incorporated there. So, so we should encourage the learners to take advantage of these online discussion forums where you students will get answers which are already answered, and if not, they can go on to a discussion on those topics. So there are several applications out there, both on Android and Mac. So students can be encouraged to install those applications where they can post questions and get answers, and also they can answer a lot of questions, and there are applications that rate the person who is answering, and they will be getting credits out of that. So there are a lot of ways within the campus, outside the campus, within the co-learners or outside. So the sky is the limit here. These forums are worldwide. It is global. So if a person from India is asking a question, if someone is located in Norway can answer that question. So, so students should be encouraged to participate in those forums. These forums are customized for specific topic, for the specific subject. Next slide, ma'am. So that's the main key takeaway that I wanted to convey, which is digitize, hybridize, and then um, you know um, personalize and socialize. So that is the main topic that I wanted to cover. The rest of them I will rush through. I don't know how much time we have. So in addition to what we have seen, in order to make the students more engaging, we should incorporate virtual reality. So virtual reality is a technology where we can take students to this virtual world, which is not affordable for actual physical experience. So they can go into those virtual world, and they can get that feeling of how that is, working, and all associated things. So this type of learning, if you remember the pyramid we were talking about, so this type of learning will be retaining the information that they're learning for a longer period of time. So that is the retention rate for this kind of learning is higher. So there are specific topics where you cannot teach in a classic model. It is very difficult to comprehend, and it is very difficult to visualize. So those are the ones that should be put into virtual reality mode. So as teachers, we should be able to produce these materials for virtual reality. The technology, the virtual reality technology or VR technology, it only offers the technology. The content has to be provided by the subject matter experts. So a biology teacher has to come up with the content for those topics that can be incorporated into virtual reality. Next slide, please. Okay, so the another important benefit we get from virtual reality is there are students with the learning difficulties. So the people with the ADHD, the people with dyslexia, and there are students with a lot of other type of um, difficulties. They cannot learn through the normal classic methods. So they will be benefited by VR course materials. So it not only makes the normal students learn better, and it is also providing access to students with learning disabilities. Next slide, please. Okay, so if you look at the right side, like you see that like you go with the VR glasses out there, and then you are able to see the entire anatomy. You can remember these kind of things very easily when compared to looking at in a two-dimensional way. It's very difficult to comprehend how the internal parts will work in two-dimensional views. So this will be very useful in several fields like civil engineering or medicine, and also in several high-tech industry projects. Next slide, please. Okay, so if you look at the right side. Okay, same topic here. It's VR again. There are a lot of scientific experiments, theoretical concepts which cannot be explained very clearly, um, can be felt more in 3D format using the VR techniques. So basically what we are saying is that the teachers have to produce these VR materials in future in addition to the traditional methods we are doing today. Next slide, please. So we talked about the VR, and we have another technology called augmented reality in education. So the difference between the AR and VR is VR is completely virtual. It need not be real, right? So in augmented reality, it is the reality. If you look at the person who is looking at that book and is pointing his app from his mobile phone on the book, and then it turns into a 3D, and then he can manipulate that. He can rotate it. He can do all of those, and then that is the augmented reality. So augmented reality there should be something real out there, and that can be augmented with additional dimensions. So for example, most of the biology, anatomy and things like that, in the bottom you can see and if a person touches the solar system map, and then if he touches sun, and then he gets the view of the sun at a closer um, you know position. So this is literally impossible for a person, go to that far to get a view of sun surface. Next slide. Okay, so I'm not going to go one by one on this. So there are tools for educators, and there are tools for learners, and then you all maybe already using one or many of these tools, and get familiar with these, and then I think most of these will be covered in your course as well. And the good news is several of these are free. Next slide, please. Okay, so what happened in 17th century? Students today cannot prepare but to calculate their problems. They depend on their slates, which are much more expensive. What will they do when their slate is dropped and breaks? They will be unable to write. So um, the fear of change, fear of adapting to a new technology has been there several centuries. So the 17th century, the fear was they had slates to write, and they were so worried that the slates will break and students will not be able to read and write. Next slide, please. Going into 18th century, there is a fear. This time it is different. Students depend on paper too much. They don't know how to write on a slate without getting chalk dust all over themselves. They cannot clean a slate properly. What will they do when they run out of paper? So 18th century problem was, hey, how do we conserve paper, right? In 17th century, what happens is slate breaks. In 18th century, what happens if we run out of paper? Next slide, please. So in 19th century, students today depend upon store-bought ink. They don't know how to make their own ink. When they run out of ink, they'll be unable to write words or cipher until their next trip to the settlement. This is a sad commentary on modern education. So the fears has been there always whenever there is a new technology that comes in. Hey, what if it breaks? What if I run out of paper? What if I run out of ink? Next slide, please. So now what is the fear in 20th century, right? These mobile devices are going to be the death of me and higher education. How can we engage students if they are always looking down at their phone? I have a shoebox that I require all phones to go in before the class starts. So right now, we are scared of mobile phones. Next slide, please. Okay, so the resistance to change is not new. So every time the technology came in, whether it was a car that came into commercial market, or um, you know, um, computers came in, or a lot of other technologies came in, right? So the radio came in, the printing technology came in, the projectors came in, right? So computers came in, VR, AR, right? So the lot of technologies came in. Every time that technology came in, they said, "Hey, what if the car gets into an accident? What if the plane crashes? Right? What if the material inside the computer vanishes, right? So how can I trust the computer? How can I trust the internet, right? So people were scared of internet when it came in. Hey, don't go to the internet, right? So there are fears, there are resistances to change all the time, all the time. So the same thing. So that happened on the technology. Every time new technology came in, people were afraid. They were pushing back. They're resisting the change. The same thing happened on the education. So in the initial period, they didn't allow everyone to learn, right? And then they said, like, okay, you can learn, but you cannot learn on these topics, right? So you cannot learn philosophy, you cannot learn sex education, you cannot. So they put restrictions on that. And then they said, like, okay, you can learn, but you cannot go to another country and learn, right? And then what happens? They're saying, okay, the female is not allowed to learn, or female is not allowed to be in sports, or we cannot have mixed gender education, right? So we can go on and on. So there were resistance to people cannot go for higher education, female cannot go for higher education, and specific professions like female cannot go for nursing jobs, female cannot go for medical job. All of this happened. So when technology changed, there was a resistance at every stage. When the education changed, and there was a resistance. Every time we made a rule, like we are going to have a mixed gender education, so there will be resistance on that. So the resistance to change is always going to be there. So as we looked at the previous slide where we talked about mobile technology, so we don't have to be concerned about the mobile technology. We should welcome the mobile technology. That is our future. Next slide, please. So the mobile phones, tablets, and e-readers with broadband connectivity could prove to be the long-sought answer in the global effort to bring high-quality multidisciplinary education to people everywhere, especially the world's poorest and most isolated community. So now UNESCO itself is saying, so we had a period where people were afraid of mobile phones, and they were asking them to they were asking the students to put them into the shoebox before they come into the classrooms. Now, UNESCO is saying these mobile devices, either mobile phones or tablets, computers, e-readers with the connectivity, are the way to go for the future. Next slide, please. Okay, if we look at July 2021, we have 7.87 billion population. Out of that, 56.6% is urbanized. So we have 5.27 billion of the population as a is a mobile user. So that is 66.9, approximately 70% of the world population is a mobile user. And 4.8 billion, that is 60.9%, is internet. So not only mobile users, they're also internet users. So we also have 4.4 billion, that is approximately 56.8%, is active social media users. Next slide, please. So the future, right? Now, if you look at what we have, this is the specific scenario that we have in India. There is one child, there is one smartphone out there listening to the lecture and then sharing that session. So there is no personalization, there is no customization, there is no specific, need-based education out there, and that's the state that we are at. And what we want to go is we want to go to a place where the content is digital, the access is digital, and mobile. Mobile is very, very important. So it is global and personal. AI, VR, and AR can be used to personalize the content, and social, and then the teachers, they become coaches. So they're no longer called teachers; they are teacher coaches. Next slide. Digital education, especially mobile education or M education is what they call. The digital education train is leaving the station with or without us. Either we need to hop on or be left behind. Let's get on and make the world digital and give access to everyone in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So it was a great explanation, a very clear explanation on race between technology and education, innovative learning methods, and how to digitize and hybridize. As you said, the three takeaways will be the norms in the future. Thank you, sir, for giving good information on augmented reality and virtual reality. So really, it was a very fantastic explanation about the future. Thank you so much, sir.